There we go. Hi, welcome to live coding with me, Rachel. Today we're gonna be mostly thinking through things and doing more of the planning stages of coding than the writing stages of course. It's not going at the same time. Faisal says 4 minutes left. Hi. And Enrique says, predicting the future greetings. Hello. Hello. You were right. I did say hello. Unless I said good morning. I don't remember. Hi. I'm very tired today. Bodes well. So, we have been working on this assistant for a while now. And we've gotten to the point where it is up on a Rasa X server. We have all the initial functionality we wanted from it. Sort of have a way of handling toxic language, which is something that we worked on for the last couple weeks. And now I think it's time to go back to our original scoping document, which I should have found ahead of time, but I had other stuff to do, unfortunately. And look at what we were thinking about and start to figure out what we want to do from here, right? So, what dialect bot? All right, here we go. So here is our original scoping document from way back in the day. You can see it was last edited in February. And here are our vintage to-do. So Faiza says, what's the topic for today? Yeah, we're really going to be doing some reflection and figuring out next steps. Coffee. Real next step. It's also pretty smoky here in Seattle today. We've gotten, I mean, there's the whole west coast of the United States is on fire. We're doing okay with the smoke not being right over us, but which it's not great, but there are at least no fires within 30-minute drive of me. I think I could go an hour and hit one. Anyway, what were our original to-dos? So see if I can find the responses to the dialect quiz and recast those as conversations. I think I don't even remember what we were talking about with this. I think this was talking about getting the data, which we did get courtesy of Bert Vox. Thank you very much. So we did get the data. And the original dialect quiz, the New York Times dialect quiz, which we have seen many a time, was based on an R implementation by Josh Katz. And I was looking for the original one, and we did not find it. And we ended up using K-nearest neighbors, which I think is the same approach that he used. And that worked pretty good. And the other thing we were talking about is we had quite a few questions, and I was interested in figuring out if we had maybe too many questions and people wouldn't stick around. And I did, in fact, read Kathy Pearl's book on voice design, which I think is in the room. So we did all of these things, and I think that there are a lot of questions, but I think people were willing to answer them based on the original test users. So let's go over the goal, and I think we talked about some implementation options, and then we also talked about some additional things that we wanted to do. So the overall project goal was to build a conversational assistant that will let people answer a set of questions about words and sounds and give them information about which region of the US most closely aligns with their language. Excuse me. We did do that. Our first round was just the dialects of US English, and then later on we were planning on including other dialect regions, a voice interface, and more pronunciation questions. And we actually did do the voice interface bit. We did an Alexa integration in, I want to say, April. And the method we used to integrate with Alexa will no longer work because Amazon quietly blacklisted ngrok. No. Oh, I think they also blacklisted ngrok, but also the particular approach that we were using also you can no longer do, and that just sort of happened silently in the background. Very frustrating as a developer. Uh, I don't think voice interface is going to be our focus for the next little bit. I think it would make more sense to make this a better teaching tool. So dialects of English are something that you would talk about in sociolinguistics classes or English classes, for people who are teaching English to learners of English. I was gonna say English as a second language learners, but often people who are learning English already speak. Um, so it could be useful for those populations, and I think also just for people's curiosity to help them get a better understanding of dialects and language variation. In my experience, that is pretty exciting for folks. So I think that the direction that we were looking for, making it really voice-based, and we might do that at some point. And these are really talking to our design decisions that we made, again, back in February. So using the free response will allow for better elicitation practices, which I agree with. I think we've definitely done. It would be great if users could ask questions about specific elicitations. Oh, interesting. I didn't see anybody do that. When we're going through and doing the conversational driven design and looking at all of our responses, which, remember how I said I was going to spend some time working on it and figure out what the state was between GitHub and our assistant currently? Did not do that. I had other things. But as I remember, once people started taking the quiz, they generally just answer the questions on the quiz, which I think also has something to do with the way that we design the system, because people just got a bunch of questions in order and answered them. It's saying, sorry, just to pop up my Rasa X server, it's saying it's disconnected again. I wonder, y'all can't see that. It's saying it's disconnected again, so you say not connected. And maybe it'll finish loading and then it will be connected. And I wonder what's leading that, because it seems to be something that's happened multiple times, and I wonder what is causing it. I guess we'll figure that out. Oh, my audio is a bit low. That would be because I'm extremely tired. Let me turn up the volume a bit. You're gonna get what you get basically on that. Enrique says, shame on Amazon for changing stuff. Yeah, it's frustrating. And I can't see the bottom of the chat for some reason. Juan says hello from India. Hello, welcome. Enrique says, I also integrated my Raspberry Pi with Alexa. Oh, interesting. Would it run Rasa X on Raspberry Pi? I guess so. I don't know. I haven't worked a whole bunch with Raspberry Pi. I haven't worked at all with Raspberry Pi. Let me rephrase that. I have basically no no experience with embedded systems, but yeah, that could be an option, definitely. Second Alley says, could you get bit close to the micro? Yeah, sorry. Hopefully it looks like the levels are a bit better now. Again, just oh wow, I'm tired. Very, very tired. I pretty much didn't sleep last night. And Faiza says, is it possible to make a fallback intent for each and every intent that we want? I don't know what you mean by that necessarily. So a fallback intent is meant to be what you will go to if you can't, with a certain degree of certainty, identify the intent of the user, right? So if you had, so like usually you have one fallback intent for your whole system, if that makes sense. Hopefully you're picking down what I'm picking up, putting up what I'm putting down. And it sounds like the audio is better. Okay, great. Thank you. I'm also trying not to talk too loudly on account of the air pollution, which I don't know if you can tell, but my voice is already a little on the rocks. Implementation options. Okay, so originally we were talking about maybe doing multiple dialects. So talking about dialects of the UK, which I'm less familiar with. Or the US version, or I mean you could do this with dialects of any region as long as you had the training data. We could do UK dialects. That could be our next thing that we do. I don't know. UK dialectology data set. The big question is going to be, is there a data set that we can use? There's a BBC data set that sounds like it's voices. There we go. Mapping lexical dialect variation in British English using Twitter. This sounds like, yeah, it's Jack. I'll pull this up real quick. So Jack Reeve, if you don't know him, I don't know why you would know Jack. He is a dialectologist who works with computer data. So I might be able to get data from him, honestly, if I ask very nicely. Okay, so he's using the BBC Voices data set. We chose this data set, was collected online. Easily accessible. Love easily accessible stuff. Also 2013, so I think it's going to be, oh, I want to say the Harvard Dialect Survey was 2003 maybe, but they're going to be relatively contemporaneous. Responses, 38 open-ended questions, which is the same format that we're using. We just sort of ask a question and people answer it. Dagon says, we're all in this pandemic. Very true. Raspberry Pi is just Linux on a tiny integrated board, but ARM chip, not 86. Good to know. Like, I'm sort of familiar with it generally, but it's not something I've ever played with. Diagon Alley says, in dialogflow, if your input doesn't match, you can configure a fallback for each intent. Oh, so you have a separate fallback action for every single intent? Wait, what? That's what I was talking about. Hope she gets me. If the input doesn't match, you can configure a fallback for each intent. Okay, sorry. I will explain why I'm confused here. So a fallback is what you do when your model is uncertain, right? So you're doing multi-class classification. You have, a probability assigned to each class. And if the probability threshold for the most likely class does not exceed some threshold, then you do the fallback. So that's how that works for intents for Rasa. And I think for, as far as I know, most systems. So then the fallback intent is what you say when you're not sure what the user said, right? So the thing that I'm confused about here is, if you know the intent that the user had, why would they ever see the fallback? You picking up what I'm putting down? So the other places you would use fallbacks are for if you're not sure what to say next in the conversation, and that might be what they're doing. See. Dragon says, yes, I can explain. I'm asking if it's possible in Rasa. I mean, what you could do is, if you have the memoization policy first, you could pop open view or somewhere. Oh, sorry, I'm not dying. That's a dumb internet joke. I'm fine. I'm just tired. So what you could do if you want to, so the fallback at the intent level is, I don't know what intent you used. The fallback is the intent that's like, hey, what's going on here? The fallback at the dialogue level is, I'm not sure what to say next. And just from your very brief explanation, it sounds like what they're doing is that there's an option for you to say, hey, if this was the last intent and I'm not sure what to do next, I'm going to explain this. Diagon Valley says, in Dialogflow, the intents are connected to one another by context. Intents are I will say I have not used Dialogflow. At the point in my life when it would have made the most sense for me to use Dialogflow, I chose not to for okay, I think the easiest thing is going to be to just look up fallback intents in Dialogflow. I know we're getting off topic, and I'm okay with that. Fallback intents, Dialogflow. Default intents? Is this what you mean? Two intents are created automatically when you create an agent. Default welcome intent, matched with the end user begins a conversation. Default fallback intent, matched when your agent doesn't recognize an end user expression. Yeah. So we already have this default fallback intent, if that's what you're referring to. Intent 1 has output context C1, and intent 2 would have C1 as input context. Yeah, so my understanding of Dialogflow is that it's much more sort of a tree-based, state-based system than we are. You can have, so if you specify over here, so in my boop stories here, I have series of sort of like template conversations. So for example, this one, if we say hi to the user and the user says hi, we ask them if they want to start the quiz, and then they say no, we say okay. If you, one of the ways that you can use these stories is in your config file. You can see I have a policy here called the memoization policy, and I think the way that these policies are organized is going to change in Rasa 2.0 a little bit. But the memoization policy means that if I see this exact order of user inputs and then I say something and then user inputs, the thing that I say should always be whatever would come next in that conversation that was included in the story, if that makes sense. And the fallback policy is in front of that because that's what'll happen if I'm not sure what the user said. And if I wanted to prioritize this, I think I'm pretty sure these are run in order. So I would put memoization above fallback. Is that your question? So you're trying to force a user to move from intent 1 to intent 2. All right, so I'm going to catch up with the chat really quick. Shaxam says, I'm making a project in my college using Rasa. It's the best framework for making chatbots. Oh, thank you. I love how beautifully it works. Well, shucks. Faisa says, like, instead of sorry, say that again, or sorry, I don't get you, and so on. Like, for example, if it's for a name, sorry, type your name correctly, or for a city, please type correct city. Oh, no, absolutely, you can do that. Yeah, so what I would do, you would want to, you'd want to define, yes, it's doable. There's going to be some extra steps. So if it also sounds like those are for entity things rather than for intents. So those are for when you're trying to extract information. If you are unable to successfully extract the information, then you need to you want to trigger one of these clarifying utterances. Yes, you definitely do that. If the user doesn't enter the right training phase for intent 2, it would go to fallback. Enrique says, I think in Rasa there's not a default database or tree of intents. Correct. So sort of the common, oh, one sec, I think I have a slide for this. my slides real quick. So the way that a lot of systems work is that, I hope you can't hear that. Somebody is blowing leaves outside. So the way that a lot of systems work is that there is a rule-based tree system. So pop this up. Oh, there we go. So it's, you know, you start with your initial state, and then there's an intent, and then that pops them down to this state. So it's more like a directed graph. In Rasa, sort of a big difference to our approach is that the dialogue policy and the order that people can take turns in is much more flexible. So if people get off topic and start talking about something else, we can handle that and recover gracefully. And I don't have a lot of details about like specifically how dialogflow works, but based on what you're saying, it sounds like it's a little bit more tree-based or state-based. Fizz says fallback actually has a name though. It's prompt. It's called prompts and not fallback. Okay. Yeah, no, you can definitely do that. So, oh god. Ooh. Oh, that's strong. Oh, that's really strong. I like strong coffee. That's extremely strong. All right. Noted. Had a heavy hand with the beans this morning. Yes, absolutely, you can do that. I'm trying to think about the easiest way that you could do that. I'm just gonna go to the forums really quick. Diagon Alley says, I'm moving from dialogflow to Rasa. Faiza, probably the same. Ah, well, we're happy to have you. This might be handled in the transfer script, but I have not worked with it deeply before. Like I mentioned, I haven't really used dialogflow. I previously worked for Google, and dialogflow was owned by Google, and I not touched it. All right. Let me see if somebody else has asked about this. Dialogflow prompts. And non-reflecting stories. If we just prompt with OS. No. Okay. So nobody else has asked about this. Yeah, this is a rabbit hole I'm happy to go down. So let's see if we can find more information from rich response messages. Is this the prompts that you were talking about? More than oh, okay, so this is like embedding images and stuff. And you're both moving over. Diagonally says intents are connected. I'd say streams rather than a tree. Okay. I think it's a perfectly valid way to design conversational agents. But the biggest problem with that is A, updating can be a bit of a bear. And B, people getting off track. Ask me about people getting off track. People getting off track or having sort of like tit chat and digressions. It's much harder to handle in a system like that. You can do it. It's just very complex. All right. Incident. No. Okay. So these look like what we would call actions in. Yeah, this is what we call an action in Rasa, are things that your assistant can do that are not just talking back and forth. Yeah, so you could definitely do it. So if I'm trying. So it sounds like specifically it's when an entity isn't filled correctly. So someone is talking to the assistant and searching for an entity and it doesn't get one. Or it finds one and it's not the right one. So I might do that as data validation, possibly. And Diagon Alley says, one big question I have has been getting compatibility when you have Python 3.8 plus. I've created a virtual environment with Python 3.6.9 to install and work. Yes, I believe for Rasa 1.0 currently we are supporting Python 3.6. So we're also, for those of you who don't know, we're currently in alpha of Rasa 2.0, which is, I mean, 1.0 will continue to exist. We're not going to like remove it all at once and everything's going to break. We're not going to do that. But there are going to be some differences, and I don't know I do not know the specific Python version that's going to be supported off the top of my head. Yeah. Diagonally says action is actually written in fulfillment. And Fraser says I think Rasa is only compatible with 3.6. Yeah, currently. I don't know about 2.0. What was I doing? Oh, right. So clarification intents. Yes. So I'm trying to think if I have an example. So if you're collecting a bunch of information, you want to fill a bunch of slots at once, forms are probably the easiest way to do that. And right now the form that we're using is not a great example of how to handle weirdness because we're just accepting any input and then matching it to the closest multiple choice answer. So the I don't know what I want to see. Oh my god, I'm so tired. Sorry, I was gonna say let's see if I can find an example of a form real quick. Do I have like just like Formbot some? Nope. Okay, I don't. Yeah. So the thing is, there's multiple ways that you'd be able to do this to get the information out. And I don't know by default how forms handle it when you ask for an entity and you don't get that entity back. So let's, you know what? Let's just clone in Formbot real quick. All right. Clone Formbot Rasa. Oh, and I do need to what is it? Conda activate Rasa install? Is that what I called it? Yeah. Okay, it looks like that works. So I'm just popping this out. So this is a post by Yusta on forms, which is the way to like get a bunch of slot information real quickly. Expanding the form action to handle more advanced cases. That sounds like what we're looking for. And we can try slots, form action, name, filling the user requests. This would be if you had custom action for the specific slots that you wanted. Submitting the form. Step 5, handling advanced cases with form action. Some necessary slots can come from very different user inputs. For example, the user would answer the question. Each of these responses has different intents, slot mappings, based on the advanced logic. Okay. Slot validation. So I think this is probably where I would do the form. So if the slot validation, the default here is if the assistant doesn't get the specific information that it's looking for, it will respond with a message that the format of the slot is invalid and set the slot to none and ask for it again. So here we are, so slots are the way that information is stored over the course of a conversation. And here we're getting each of the slots. Let me make this a little bit bigger so we have better line breaks. Okay, we don't get better line breaks. We can't have that. If some slot was requested but none was extracted, so this is the bit that is super relevant here. It will allow other policies to predict another action. So in your actions.py, where you're defining what the form can do and the type of information that you want to get from it, when you don't correctly validate it, so it's in the wrong format, like Faiza mentioned, you can raise this objection, rejection, not objection. You do raise objections, but this is an error message that you would do. And then you, so the dispatcher is what sends information to the users, and you would, here's where you would put the specific utterance that is the, what do you call it, the prompt. So here's where you'd say, hey, if we don't correctly validate this information the user is providing, then we're going to use this utterance, hey, that's the wrong number of people, and the utterance would be, and then the utterance would be just like any other utterance or something that your bot would say, defined here in your domain.yaml. So you would add all the prompts that you wanted, and then in your actions folder, you would describe the state. In your actions script, you describe the state that would cause it to give that prompt. So you could say the wrong number of people, or if they don't enter a number, you can say, like, please enter a number of people. So you could actually have multiple utterances here depending on how the answer is wrong. I hope that helped. Let's see. Enrique says, if the intent is not clear, the entity results are empty. I manage that with Python. Try sentence in track-related message. So the tracker is what stores the history of the conversation. Latest message is, hey, what was in the last message? Was there the entity that I was looking for? Duckling Alley says, some other questions. Can we send media files and get the user location? So the way that sending media files is usually done is that you handle like the displaying of it on the front end, and you'll send like a link to a YouTube video, and then the front end will handle grabbing the video and playing it, for example. But yeah, you can definitely, I mean, it's a very extensible framework, so you can really, if there's something that you want to do, you can make it work. Whether or not it's going to be simple is a separate question. Get user location. I mean, we don't have like a geolocation server integrated with Rasa. I think the easiest way to do it would be to ask. You can also have a custom action that makes an API call to, you know, whatever service you're using to get location. But we certainly, like, we don't capture or store that information automatically when people are using it. As it says, do a live coding on this topic, how to make a fallback prompt for each intent. Yeah, that's not a bad idea. I think it might be worthwhile to take a little break on the dialogbot project and then come back to it in just a little bit. While I debug what is up with the GitHub connection. I don't know what is up with that. And I say I'm not delighted by it. And it could definitely be on my end because my GitHub setup is extremely, a little weird. Okay, I'll own it. I will definitely own it. Enrique says, I think you have to create actions for every intent response you want. You can actually put it in a single action. So all of these here are in the validation part are in this single function called validate that's in the action folder in the class for the form. So as part of the form, as part of validation, you can do this all in a single function. And the function called validation will be run every time a slot is filled. Sorry, this function validate will be run every time a slot is filled to check that the input is correct. Faiza says, like Rachel says, for entity extraction, same as in dialogflow, but you have to put prompt. And Diagon says, in actions, is it possible to detect location? There's a little bit of delay between me and the chat, so you can definitely do it, but you'd have to, use another service to do it. We don't have that built in. And I don't know. I guess my preference is, I'm one of those people that, like, when a site's like, hey, can I access your location? I'm always like, absolutely not. Get out of here. No. So I think it, like, if it were me designing an assistant, I'd be like, hey, what's your time zone? Or whatever it is that's relevant. But of course, you may have different needs or use cases. Yeah, what time is it? About 20 minutes. Yeah, let's play around with Formbot and see if we can actually get it working real quick. I'm just gonna open this up real quick to see. Okay, I think we can do this in 20 minutes. I don't think it'll be that difficult. Famous last words, but listen, I live in hope. Hey, Rasa. Also, I have Rasa installed in a Conda environment. And here I'm just cloning in this example. That's going to take a second to retrieve, and I'm going to pop up secret stuff real quick and secret stuff. Folder. Pick form prompt. Oh, you know what? I need to get in here. Okay. Yeah, there we go. So we're installing into this quick form prompt. Oh, I spelled it without a K. See, it's okay. It's an aesthetic choice. So Formbot is a assistant that collects a bunch of information on a form. I think it's like a where do you want to sit in a restaurant sort of thing. And we can modify it so that it has a prompt. Diagon says understood. And my internet is very bad right now. So it's gonna take a bit. Diagon says, I guess I need to get back to work. Would love to have watched through. Will there be a stream tomorrow or the day after weekend chill coding? Probably not. I actually might be out next week. And Fun Researcher says, try some bot available in the community showcase. Oh, that would have been a good choice as well. I just picked Formbot because I'm sort of familiar with it. So Community Showcase, for those of you who don't know, is a showcase for assistants built by Rasa community members. And Formbot is an example that was built by the Rasa team, just showing how to use forms, which are going to change in Rasa 2.0, FYI. They're not going to be in the SDK anymore. They're going to be part of sort of the middle bit of Rasa coffee. Yeah, so probably not coding any this weekend. Maybe next Wednesday? Again, it depends. I might be out next week. Whew. Downloading. Oh, strong. This is a cup of drip coffee that I would say is about as strong as espresso. No complaints though. All right, talk to you later. Diagon Alley. How y'all doing? The the day before yesterday, San Francisco was like orange. And it's not quite as bad as that here, but it is very smoky. By here, I mean Seattle, which ooh. Enrique says, "Why is the Git repo so big?" Uh, y'all, I just it's because I wasn't cloning the form. I was cloning the entire project. It was all of Ross. Right. I can't be trusted. um yeah, that's big. Let me see if I can find something. Jiminy Cricket, Formbot Rasa. All right, I just have an incognito tab to make sure I get the same experience y'all get. This is just the Formbot, which is the thing that I actually want. I was not downloading Formbot. I was downloading all of this, like all of Rasa open source, which you are welcome to do, of course, but more than I needed. I was specifically looking just for Formbot. So what's in Formbot is Rasa NLU and Rasa Core, which is now just called Rasa Open Source. Duckling. So Duckling we use for numbers and dates and things like that, and it's a service. It's out of Stanford. Wrong about that. Hi, Sarah. I want to chat right now, but thank you. I've just been booted to a random place in the docs. I was thinking that it was gonna be sending me to Duckling. Also URLs. It's that. Yeah. So I cloned the whole thing and not the thing that I wanted. All right. Yeah. No, I don't. I don't. Yep. Yep. No, I don't. Yes. Yes. Please delete it. Oh, one more time. So I actually just want this one example and not all of Rasa open source, which would explain why it was so slow. Hub. GitHub.com, Rasa HQ, Rasa tree. God. Cool. What's Formbot? Well, I we've spent too long just sort of is it maybe the direction of the slashes, perhaps? Nope, not found. All right. It definitely exists. We could definitely download this part of it. Oh well, I don't care that much. Yes, it's definitely possible to answer your question about prompts. We were working on scoping the dialect bot. Enrique says formbot.get. But not found. Git clone is definitely the right command. Well, let's finish the scoping, which is what we originally said we were gonna do today. Oh, I'm on the wrong side. So here's our original design doc. With all our implementation options. Using a form to collect data, which we did. Send all the data to a custom action that runs the ML code and returns information about what geographic region shares the most feature with the users. We did that, and we ended up going with state as the region that we were looking at. And then questions. So we've answered this. We've answered this. These we have not. And then add ability to handle additional tenses that actually come up in conversation, but they haven't really. I mean, the toxic language intent, we definitely did. And then some sample questions. So Rasa, create a form. Yeah, so we have pretty much finished everything that we said we were going to do, except the answering questions about dialects. And I think my question is, how are we going to make that, if we choose to do that and we choose to spend time on that? 10, 11. Oh. If we choose to spend time on that, there are some things I definitely want to do next. So fix testing. Right now we have sort of minimal testing and I haven't really been staying on top of it. So testing is, I think, the definite next thing we want to do. We want to update to Rasa 2.0 once it's in, probably once it's in general release. Yeah, probably once it's out of alpha and beta. Other things we want to do: considered but discarded. Adding a dialectology Q&A. So thinking about this, if people have questions about different dialects, and also just a quick PSA, dialectology is the study of dialects. Dialectics is like rhetoric, like much more boring. Sorry, that's not fair. I found it less interesting topic. So the big problem with the dialectology Q&A is we're gonna have to be able to like actually handle the FAQs. Could do if we had a good FAQ to build from. And I don't have that to hand. It might be something that like the American Dialect Society has. But then like you obviously don't want to copy and paste text directly because that's covered by copyright. So I don't know, I guess we could point people to, does ADS have an FAQ? Oh, so if you're not familiar, most people aren't. The American Dialect Society is a organization of sociolinguists predominantly who there's a American Speech is their journal, which is a research journal, which is a great publication venue, and they also do the Word of the Year vote. It's a scholarly organization. And I don't think they do have an FAQ. Maybe resources, possibly? Word of the year stuff. Annual meeting in Minneapolis. Yeah, okay, so I don't think they do have a frequently asked questions could draw from the project. And what I'd probably do is if somebody matched an intent that there was an FAQ for, we could point them to a link to the appropriate resource on their site, but it looks like those resources don't exist. The Linguistic Society of America might have something, possibly. Hard to let users know is available. So a big problem with building a bunch of answers to specific questions is if nobody ever asks that question, it's not cool, right? So one thing we could do is we could have like buttons for the different answers that people could give. But if we had like 10 questions, it's 10 buttons, and that's just a lot of screen real estate. And I think that's not the best user experience. I think the sort of guided conversation is a lot more useful. Other things to be considered but discarded, adding a voice component may do in the future, but not right away. And I just think there's other things we could spend our time on. So testing is very important. Fixed Rasa update 2.0. What's up with the GitHub Rasa X connection lapsing? And that may very well be due to, again, my deeply weird GitHub setup. Yeah, so I think those are the big things. Other things that so I think these are actually technical fixes rather than new functionality. Specific new functionality. Being able to quit halfway through the quiz and still get results, right? So people can ask for the results at any point in the quiz. And this is the way that the original dialectology quiz was actually set up on the data collection side. So people answered a bunch of questions, and then you had the chance to be like, hey, I want to keep answering questions, or no, I think I'm done now. This is going to be difficult. Oh, another technical fix. We need to act on intents detected while filling out the form. May need to redo how we save information. So right now what we're doing is when people are taking the quiz, they are entering some text. We are taking all of that text and we are using all of that text to validate, is being validated against a list of answers to this question. And sorry if that's been bothering you for a while. So because we're taking in all of the text that the user uses and then validating it and using it to fill a slot, if there is an intent detected there, it's not acted upon. So if someone asks, are you a bot, in the middle of filling out the form, right now, because of the way that we're handling form inputs, it's not handled correctly. So the way that it should be handled is that we should pause the form, we should answer that question, and then we should go back to doing the form. It is possible that this is due to the way that I've set up the form in my stories and not, it's possible that this is due to the way that I've set it up in my stories right here. And I just need to add some paths with like an option for other things happening in the middle of the form. But it could also, and I think it's more likely that it's really down to the way that I am collecting the form answers, which is a little bit hacky, and I own that because I don't want to, because I want the people to do very free form input. Enrique says, I also worked on adding a voice component. I must create the action for this, but wondering how to implement the streaming. The streaming of the user voice command? Like how to open up the mic? Because I would tie that to action listen. So when action listen happens, you're also collecting. I guess it depends on how you're doing it. So sort of the way that we did it with Alexa is that Rasa only ever looked at text. So Alexa was sort of standing in between Rasa and the user. So the user would say something with voice. Alexa would transcribe that. That transcription would get sent to Rasa X. We do the NLU. We do the dialogue management. The bot would return an answer. That answer would go through voice synthesis, and Alexa would replay the voice synthesis. So the sort of like the voice bit in the middle was handled differently, and all Rasa was handling was text in, text out, if that was the question. If you wanted to do the voice like really closely integrated with the assistant, where Rasa is doing more of the handling and you're doing the ASR as part of the NLU, ASR is automatic speech. I don't know. I know there's an example project on the blog that I think Yusta did that's using the Mozilla open source voice toolkit. I don't think it's called the Mozilla open source voice toolkit, but that's what it was. That might be a helpful starting place. Paulo says, can you make a video solving a TensorFlow error? I can't use Rasa init because failed to load native. Can you use TensorFlow otherwise? That sounds to me like maybe your TensorFlow, if you're in a virtual environment, your TensorFlow might not be installed in that same virtual environment, possibly. Can you, in the same environment where you're trying to run Rasa init, can you run TensorFlow code successfully? I guess is the thing I would figure out there during troubleshooting. Where was I? I was using my so this may be down to our stories, or this may be down to the way that we are collecting information from the users, and it's hard to say which. What else have I been putting? I guess new functionality would be report more informative results. So the New York Times dialect quiz, it gives you a map, which I don't know that I want to mess with, but it is really cool to look at. Map most distinctive words could be something. So I don't know how easy it is to get like feature weights out of a KNN, but we might be able to do that and be like, hey, and the word that was most distinctive for you was, you say basketball bug for roly-poly. Well, roly-poly is what I would say. I shouldn't say that the basketball bug is the weird form. Enrique says, the problem with TensorFlow, I think, is the compatibility version in it. And Faiza says, make sure you're under a virtual environment for most of the incompatibility issues. We have a couple of videos that are installation guides for different operating systems, and if you follow one of those, it should work. Fingers crossed. Okay, so I think looking at sort of the urgency here, I think this one is the most urgent because we're gonna lose all our conversational driven development work if we don't figure out this connection. And I think the second thing that's really important is testing, because if we're going to keep making updates to the assistant, we want to make sure that it works correctly. I think the third thing that is important here is this acting on intent, so filling out the form. I think that's gonna be important for us. And then the new functionality, I think this is a good fourth thing, because I think that'll make the quiz more fun to take if you get more information at the end of it. And then update to Rasa 2.0 will happen. That's dependent on the Rasa 2.0 release schedule. So I think that's going to be our next little bit for the dialect project. And I might have a quick I might take a quick break and work on another small project. I know there've been a lot of questions. I've been listening, Fiza, for an assistant that can send emails or that can update or interact with MySQL database. I don't have a project in dialogflow. I think like a transition could be good, but like I don't have one, so it'll be a little bit tough. But yeah, I may or may not be back next week. It depends on other factors. So when we get back to live coding, I think we're gonna start. I might see if I can fix this off screen, but we're gonna hopefully have the GitHub Rasa X connection good to go. I guess it could also be VM instability. I don't know. I need to do some troubleshooting there. And then the next thing will be testing and making sure our testing is good to go. All right. Thanks so much for joining me today. I know I was a little bit all over the place. I don't think we wrote any actual code. I failed to clone some repos, so that's exciting. But that's not true. I successfully cloned the repo that is all of Rasa open source, which is way more than I need. Yeah. Thanks for joining me today. Stay safe, stay healthy. If you're in a very smoky place, try to stay indoors as much as you can. And I will see you again on the stream when that happens. Fiza says, please, the MySQL add it. Paolo says about the TensorFlow issue, I tried to change the TensorFlow version, update pip and everything like that, and I couldn't. I'll wait for live recording to see with subtitles. Thanks, bye. Yeah, I don't know that I'm going to have the exact issue that you have with installation, unfortunately. So good luck. I hope you can figure it out. In any case, I'll see you next time. Yeah, we'll see y'all next time. Thanks for joining me. When we get back together, we'll figure out